Thank you. Saying you're the sassiest in classical radio is setting the bar so low. It's just hard to handle. I'm sorry. Was you just here for the costumes? I know. You know what? I have photos of me in lederhosen. You can go to my website, sassiestmaniclassicalradio.com, and order yours. We in past beer jams we have done lederhosen, but we haven't done them in a while, so I didn't know that you were going to be ready for that tonight. It's Friday the 13th. You guys superstitious at all? Yeah. I'm a little superstitious. I realize I have this nervous tic where I knock on wood all the time, but because I have to do it like dad style, I'm like, I'm knocking on wood. That's my head. It's wood, see? And, but I feel like my superstitions have changed a little bit as I've become a New Yorker. Like, I think, for example, all New Yorkers know that it's bad luck when an old man dies alone if you don't wait 24 hours before asking to take over his apartment. Because at that point, that apartment will be haunted, which is a small price to pay for an Eden kitchen, but you will have a ghost. And if you wait longer than 24 hours, you're not going to get it. Somebody else is going to snatch that up. I also think, as a kid, it was like, see a penny, pick it up all day long, you'll have good luck, right? You know that one? And now I feel like, see a penny, pick it up all day long, you're going to have hepatitis. You're just going to have something awful. And that's just how it's transmitted. My father's a scientist. My father's here in the audience. He can attest that's how it's transmitted. I think like the ultimate New York superstition is the 5-second rule. You believe in the 5-second rule? Yeah, that makes sense, right? Of course it makes sense, because the petri dish that is the subway floor, like you drop something there, you think there's like a SWAT team of bacteria that are like, boys, stand down, wait for my mark. 5, 4, 3. So Friday the 13th wasn't a thing except for classical music. Do you know about this? So back in the old days, there was like, Friday was a bad luck day. 13, that was a bad luck number. But it wasn't until somebody was writing a biography of Joaquino Rossini that they said, look, the guy died on a Friday, and it was the 13th. Oh my God, that's terrible. So that was one of the first references in English to Friday the 13th as being an unlucky, inauspicious day. One of the first references. Also, very not so well known, is that Rossini drowned in a freak accident at Camp Crystal Lake, and his mother swore revenge, and yeah, it's a terrible story. But tonight is a very lucky night for us. We have 4 brewers. We have friends from Wartega, Strong Rope, Sixpoint, and Bridge and Tunnel, and we have 4 amazing performers with us, including Stefan Jackiw and G. We have Bridget Kibbey and Brandon George, and we have Boy Meets Girl, and we're going to start. We also have an amazing puppeteer. And Christopher O'Reilly, so we have Basil Twist and Christopher O'Reilly are going to perform for us tonight. So some amazing performers. But it would not be a beer party if we didn't hand out beer. So the beer is coming around, and I want to make sure everybody's got one. This is kind of just like a Philharmonic concert, where they come around passing out the beers. I love this. It's cooperating. I love this. Very good. Are we almost there? Oh, okay, we're still moving around. Okay, so how many of you people are on Instagram? Oh my God. How many of you are on Facebook? Awesome. I actually knew that already because I scrubbed your data. But for Instagram, if you have not yet followed WQXR on Instagram, we post awesome things, including things from this night. We'd love you to follow us and take pictures tonight. So we are WQXR_classical. Feel free to take out those phones and take pictures and use them. And we'd love you to see you on social media too. And as this beer, how are we doing on beer? Does everybody have a beer? All right. So I would like you to meet the person who made that beer in your hands. Please welcome Merlin Ward. I have to say, Merlin needs a drink because he had the commute from hell. Cheers.
Sorry, I rushed a little bit. I was thirsty. Thank you.
So, Merlin, please tell us a little bit about the beer we have tonight?
So what you have today is a Belgian-style wit beer, which is a wit or wheat beer made with Belgian yeast, and these are traditionally made with orange peel and coriander. But we switched it up a little bit and went with kumquats, which are a little more tart, a little more kind of zesty oils in them, so it brightens up the beer quite a bit.
And tell me a little bit about Wartega, and because I know that you like adding stuff to beer.
Yes, our whole spiel is herb, spice, and fruit beers. So everything we make is inspired by ancient ale ingredients and uses culinary inspiration. And we like to kind of experiment with what brewers used to work with before the Reinheitsgebot, which was the German purity law from that was created in Germany about 502 years ago. So we now use all kinds of adjuncts like spices and fruit zests and different herbs that used to be used in the old brews long ago, and try to create really nice bold flavored beers that still are interesting and not too crazy.
And how'd you get the name Wartega?
So my last name is Ward. My wife's last name is Ortega. We both dropped a letter, smashed it together, made it really easy to find a URL for our website. It was awesome.
And you have a brewery and tap room in Brooklyn, right?
We do, yeah, Sunset Park. That's right. He's been there.
You've been there.
Yeah, that's where we're at. We also have been brewing quite a bit of beer with some of the other breweries in New York City. We've been contracting, so you can actually find our beer all over the city now as well.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so it is Friday the 13th, so I want to ask everybody about a superstition. So what do you have a superstition?
So I guess you could really say that fermentation in itself is a superstition.
Like it's not happening?
Well, it used to be that people didn't know how or why beer became beer, or any ferment became a ferment. Before Louis Pasteur, there was no real understanding of fermentation in terms of the chemical process that was happening. It used to be that you would just kind of scrounge up all your stuff from your farm, put it into a wet barrel with some boiling water for a little while, and then let it sit in the same pot that you did it last time in, and then like a day later, poof, it started frothing and turning into something. And about 2 days after that, you'd start drinking it and be like, all right, we can get drunk on this. But we had no idea what it meant. And so it was always magical, and it was always this kind of tradition. So you'd always use the same pots, the same sticks, the same vessels, and boom, you'd have beer.
Like you never wash your lucky pot or something
No,
like that?
no. It's like a cast iron skillet.
All right, so I think that's a great way to start, that the superstition of the day is yeast.
Fermentation, all enough. Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Merlin, for sharing this with us.
Cheers. Thanks for having me on.
All right.
Cheers, guys.
Okay, enjoy. So, what? That's fine. So, while you're enjoying this beer from Merlin, this variation on a Belgian wheat, I want to tell you that the other day I went to what I did not expect was what I would find in like a puppet show. Down about a block away from here at the Here Performance Space, Basil Twist has a production of Symphony Fantastique with live piano accompaniment provided by Christopher O'Reilly. It is a mind-blowing and mind-altering production. Not surprisingly, they're doing a midnight show on 420. You put that all together. But it is my great pleasure to bring to the stage Basil Twist and Christopher O'Reilly.
Hello.
Okay.
a traditional marionette. It's called Stickman. I've had this puppet for about 25 years. I made him myself. He's got 16 strings, and I made him when I went to puppet school at the feet of great puppet masters. So he's a good puppet. He's got great knowledge in him that was transmitted to me, and it took me 25 years to kind of understand him. He's a traditional puppet. He's a puppet that's a representational puppet. He looks like a little man. He has legs and arms and a head. Of course, he can do things that a normal human being couldn't do, like fly. But as much as I love this kind of puppet, I was provoked when I went to this puppetry school. It was in France, and I was curious, what would a puppet show be like that was not figurative, that was not representational, where the materials where we make the puppet out of were not manipulated to make them look like something, like a man or an animal, but to just be themselves, the way that the abstract painters at the beginning of the 20th century would just use form and line and color to conjure emotion the way that music does, without necessarily a meaning to it. And so that's where this piece, Symphonie Fantastique, came from. My version of Symphonie Fantastique. The Symphonie Fantastique is actually notorious for having a story, and it's an kind of autobiographical story that Hector Berlioz wrote. He was obsessed over an unattainable woman. So the story is about an artist who's obsessed over an unattainable woman, and he goes through all kinds of passions and dreams and obsessions, and eventually it culminates in a phantasmagoric nightmare, as these things do. And but I decided, even though there is that story, and this is the section from Symphonie Fantastique where he escapes to nature to try and soothe his soul, but he's still tormented by his obsession. I decided to make a version of this story, but without telling that literal story, and to use pure fabric, bubbles, feathers, and I do it in a giant aquarium. And I have all these materials underwater, which makes it completely unlike the normal world or anything that you can relate to. And I use a lot of fabric in the show. And I try and just make the fabric and those elements come to life on their own. So I couldn't bring my aquarium here, but I did bring my pianist. So I'm going to do a little sampling of that work, not in water, but in air, in a fluid environment, to kind of demonstrate the idea of a more abstract sense of puppetry, something coming to life.
Basil Twist. Basil Twist.
Matt.
Wow. Basil Twist, Christopher O'Reilly. Amazing. Right? I mean, just by a show of hands, have you ever seen anything like that before in your life? No. Amazing. Thank you so much. I want to ask, just from the classical music perspective, why did you choose Symphonie Fantastique?
It has a fantastic title. It's French.
Uh-huh.
It's about an hour long. It's immensely theatrical. It's passionate and romantic. It just had it was so inspiring. And it has that sort of, ultimately, that sort of phantasmagoric wildness that only kind of puppetry can really express.
Or opium.
Or
right?
opium,
Like
yeah.
It's could have gone either way.
Yeah.
So, and I guess the thing that I want to know is, how did you get the inspiration to put it all underwater?
I stumbled across an aquarium on the street that someone had thrown away, and I was just dragged it into my studio and was just playing with it. It just happened like that.
So it was like a yard sale thing that
No, it was just garbage when people really could find good stuff on the street in New York. It was an aquarium someone had thrown out, and I just brought it, a little tiny one, and I just brought it in and filled it with water and started playing with it.
You know how I feel about things you find on the street. I've already explained that to everyone. It's a miracle you're alive today.
That's right.
And tell me about working with live accompaniment. This is, this amazing transcript. It wasn't originally written for the piano, right?
Well, originally, I originally used the orchestral version with a recording. So, and then I met Chris at the Ravinia Festival in Chicago, and it was so clear that there was something so theatrical about the story that is there about an artist who's having these sort of this fever dream. And he becomes the artist who's having that fever dream. And the way that it's set up down at the theater is that the piano sits just in front of just beneath the aquarium. So all of the imagery is kind of soaring out of the aquarium, out of the piano. And I think it's just much more, it's still, we try not to make it literal, but it's still that it's this vision, nightmare, obsession, hallucination that's happening.
So when I went down to the performance space after the show, you let people walk behind and see a little bit about the magic behind it. There's actually, I think, five 5 puppeteers.
Yeah.
In wetsuits.
In wetsuits, doing this work. Now, but you said you had to jump in recently.
I did. Well, I used to be in the show, and so I know all the parts. And one of the puppeteers had to go to a wedding, so I jumped in. I'll jump in for the 420 show too.
Were you? Was it easy to get back into? It was like riding a bicycle in an aquarium with wet fabric. I mean, like what was it?
I mean, there's a body memory thing to it. I mean, I did this show 20 years ago, and I've done it off and on for the past 20 years. So it's in my body better than how I can describe it. It's easier to do it, and it's super fun show to do. So, yeah.
Now, Christopher, so many of you know that Christopher is on the radio nationally on a great NPR show called From the Top, where every week you speak to some of the most talented kids and young people in classical music, the rising stars of these amazing artists who are precocious and talented and everything. What's it like working with a fish tank?
Well, first of all, before we leave that, I just want to know, want you to know we've got 2 alums performing tonight. Jiyoung and Stefan Jackiw.
No kidding.
We've got a couple of alums on air. Nadia Sirota is a presence here, right? The Balliet brothers. We're all in there. From the Top is all over the place. Anyway, it's what's amazing working with Basil and the company is that these people know the score as well or better than any conductor you can name. I mean, they know it backwards and forwards, and they know every moment of it, and they know and appreciate any time that I decide. And one of the great advantages of playing it on the piano is that you don't have to be laboring under the stern conductor. It can be free. So if you're playing a waltz, it's serendipitous, and so it's like that. So that's a wonderful thing. And I'm now that I've played the piece, we played it together first of all 15 years ago, and so since then I'm really trying to take Liszt at his word and making a really good piano piece out of it. And so I'm not worried about imitating the orchestra, and it has its benefits and payoffs. Mark Morris came to the show the other night. He said, I mean, the only response I could have is marry me, because he said, this is so much better than the orchestra version. So yeah.
Where are you registered?
I know, yes.
The show is up now through June.
Yep.
And the 420 show, I've got to ask, is it legal? Do I have to be 18 and over? Tell me a little bit more about this.
Anyone can come to the 420 show. It's late. It's at midnight. So, but it's on a Friday night.
It's a Friday night.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a week from tonight.
It's a week from tonight.
Do they serve beer?
There is beer
beer there, yes.
at the venue.
Yeah, beer and wine.
And cookies.
And cookies and edibles. If you get the munchies.
I think what's nice about the show is that even if you don't have the munchies going in, you will on the way out.
Yes.
So Basil Twist, Christopher O'Reilly, thank you so much for sharing this music and your art with us tonight. And I do mean this. It is not like anything you've ever seen. So please make it your business not to go here, but to go here, down there, which the Here Performance Space is down 2 blocks from here. The show is just about every night there, and you can find it very easily. Symphonie Fantastique, Basil Twist with Christopher O'Reilly. Okay. Wow. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do our favorite classical music trivia. So I need a volunteer from the audience. Maybe somebody who I can't see in the shadows over there. I have a volunteer all the way in the back. I see a volunteer who's willing to play a little classical music trivia with us. Please welcome to the stage. You are the shortest 21-year-old I've ever seen in my life. But I feel like I went to high school with you. What's your name?
Shannon.
You're Shandin?
Shannon.
Shannon. And where are you from?
Brooklyn.
You said that like as if. Is there any other place to be?
Yeah.
Well, welcome, Shannon. Do you listen to classical music?
Sometimes.
All right. So today we're going to, because it's Friday the 13th, first of all, let me show you the prize here. So you are playing for a handy dandy WQXR tote bag. These go out to members who join us. Gorgeous, right? And inside this is something new. We've talked about it in a pledge drive. I'm going to unwrap it, but it is clean. This is like a theme of the night. It's like my germophobia. So, but this has, you see that? The conductor hands? We call this the Leonard Bierstein. I see. Oh, the groans are like sweet, sweet magic music to my ears. Thank you so much. Go on, groan some more. So the way this works is that I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and if you answer any of these questions correctly or incorrectly, you will win the prize. Do you feel like you're ready to play, Shannon from Brooklyn?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Composer phobias. The great composer and conductor Gustav Mahler was a fearless pioneer of the symphony, stretching the boundaries of the form and its emotional range. But even the artistically brave can have their weaknesses. What terrified Gustav Mahler? Was it A, having to conduct operetta again, 3 blind mice running around his composer's cottage in the Austrian Lake Country, finishing his 9th Symphony, or finishing his Grey Poupon?
The first one.
Having to conduct operetta again?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't
he
know.
did do that early in his career, but he was actually terrified of finishing his 9th Symphony. Because Beethoven had died after his 9th Symphony, Mahler became convinced that if he finished his 9th Symphony, he was going to die too. So he wrote his 8th Symphony, he wrote another, and then he thought, you know what, this is going to be slick. I'm going to call this Songs of the Earth. I'm not going to even use the word symphony, and I'll just like pull a fast one. And he got by, and he's like, okay, that's cool. So I'm just gonna, this thing's not a curse, it's not a real thing. Why don't I write a 9th Symphony? And then he died. So, true story. All right, you are rocking and rolling right now. Okay, here we go. So, everybody knows Richard Wagner's most famous superstition, which is, it's bad luck if a Jew. But Wagner developed other phobias as a child. What was Richard Wagner afraid of? Was it A, the color pink, B, silk underwear, C, beer bottles, or D, any opera under 4 hours long?
Okay, A.
Well, as a matter of fact, Wagner loved long operas. He loved the color pink and definitely loved his silk and satin underwear. That is true. You can Google that, you'll be surprised. But he was afraid of beer bottles. Early on as a childhood, he caught a glimpse of some ceramic beer steins in the moonlight, and he thought they were gremlins grimacing at him, and he never looked at them again. He would be very unhappy to see this beer coming around today. He also, like Berlioz, enjoyed opium with champagne. That was how he liked to take, this is true. Wagner liked opium, champagne, and heart medicine together. It's like a cocktail. Not for you, though. Not for you, Shannon. Shannon, you're doing great. You are within reach of the prize. Okay? You're 0 for 2, and anything could happen. Okay, here we go. Our last question. Arnold Schoenberg was a musical modernist whose 12-tone method of composing gave us such hits as Variations for Orchestra and that Toe Tapper String Quartet No. 3. But he fled Austria before the war and relocated to LA. For the remainder of his life, what was Arnold Schoenberg truly afraid of? Was it A, a hummable melody? Was it B, traffic on the 401? C, losing tennis to his neighbor George Gershwin? Or D, the number 13?
D.
Correct. He was terrified. Let's give it for Shannon. He was terrified of the number 13, so much so that he wouldn't number his compositions with the number 13. He'd like do 12A, 12B, and then skip to 14. And he was so, if the 13th rolled around on his 76th birthday, 7 and 6 makes 13. Oh my God, I'm gonna die today. And he did. So, yeah. All right, I'll give you one last quick one, okay? You ready, Shannon? Mozart was a child prodigy who could write symphonies and more from a very early age, but even Mozart had some childish fears. What was boy Mozart afraid of? Was it A, spiders under his bed, B, Antonio Salieri under his bed, C, trumpets, or D, people finding out his sister Nannerl was just as talented as he was?
Finally, one that I know. C.
Very good. That's right. Mozart had a weird fixation about not liking trumpets, and he had to leave the room crying whenever they were played. Can we have a round of applause for Shannon of Brooklyn? Oh my God. Shannon, you are the proud owner of a tote bag, and your parents are the proud owner of a beer stein. Thank you so much for playing. We have another round of applause for Shannon. Okay. Does everybody have their next beer? All right. Are we feeling good about having more beer? Okay. Fantastic. So please welcome our next brewer. And I'm going to hope that I've got this right. What are we drinking today? Are we drinking the American Pale Ale? Yes. Okay. So can you please welcome, who are we having on? This is what happens when I drink a beer and without my script. Oh, Eric, I knew it was you, buddy. Hey, man, Eric Botchley of Brooklyn. Good. Of Sixpoint Brewery. Please welcome. So, Eric, thank you. Cheers. So, Eric of Sixpoint, tell us a little about what we're drinking tonight.
All right, so this is Hootie. It's a hazy American Pale Ale, about 5.6% ABV. It's definitely hazy. So what you're going to notice or should notice is some strong like pineapple candied pineapple character, a lot of citrus notes in the aromatics. We go direct to our hop farmers to get the hops and the raw materials for these beers. So we specifically select hops that will work for the vision we have of creating the ultimate beer.
So where are these hops farmers?
Idaho. This is a hop called Idaho 7. That's 50% of the dry hop bill for this beer is from Idaho. And it's called Idaho 7.
Oh, excellent. And tell me a little bit about what one of the things I like about Sixpoint is that you have a really clear philosophy about beer and life and culture. And can you say a little bit more about your philosophy as a brewer?
Yeah, I mean, I take a really pretty dynamic approach to brewing and Sixpoint in general. We make a lot of varied styles, and we're very interested in the consumer palate and the beer drinker, shift in palate over time, and being really in tune with our fans and our audience, and evolving with them. So constantly creating new beers and working at the pace of our consumers on that end. And to that point, we invite people to come to the brewery, and we often drink with them and look for their opinions and advice and suggestions, and we have an open dialogue about that. So they're part of the formulation process too for a lot of these small batch beers we make.
All right, so I have to ask a question about Sixpoint. What's with the cans? I feel like that is like these little skinny cans.
I'm used to them, so when I grab a 16-ounce can now, it looks huge.
I'm drinking Bud, and I get the skinny little can.
Yeah, so we're big fans of the 12-ounce sleek can, and that's what we use for our large and small batch.
Mm-hmm. And why did you decide to do that? Like not go bottles or something like that?
That was before my time at Sixpoint, but I think it was just a different format that we wanted to explore.
Mm-hmm. And tell us about Sixpoint. What are the 6 points?
Oh, the 6 points. There's a good page on our website where you can look more into that.
I can barely remember my name right now, so now I got to go to the phone and get it. Can you?
I'll defer to the website, but yeah, the 6 point is a brewer's star, so it's based on the nautical star, and each point represents some of the raw materials and the elements that make up the brewing.
All right, so tell us the website.
www.sixpoint.com.
All right, everybody. Get over there, go to sixpoint.com. You can also go to the tap room in Red Hook.
We're working on a tap room, but we have monthly events at the brewery. Yeah.
Monthly events at the brewery. When is the next one?
Tomorrow. Yep.
You happen to have 150 people here, so what's the event?
So we do monthly small batch releases. We actually have an app technology where people can buy beer through the app. And so we have select releases that we work on every month.
Is it delivered through the phone?
It's not, no, we're working on that, but not yet.
I'm in classical music, so these things, me and tech don't. Amazing. And so, how did you get started in this?
I was actually a bioengineer for about 10 years. And
Me too.
Yeah, there you go. A lot of similarities here. So yeah, and as a scientist, I naturally gravitated towards brewing because there's a lot of elements of science to that. But what I really liked is the creativity involved in the brewing process. So, bioengineer, got into home brewing, and that really just dominated my life. And so I went to school for brewing and then helped build a brewery in Massachusetts and worked on, that's several breweries in the area.
Amazing. And do you have any superstitions? Friday the 13th, you're walking onto ladders. What are you doing?
Superstitions. Every time I got on an airplane, I double tap the plane.
What? Really? That's a thing?
Something I picked up from my wife. Yeah, I gotta tap the plane twice. If I don't do it, she makes me go back out and tap the outside. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a thing, man. It's a thing.
Do other people know? Other people touch the plane like that? And it's like, okay, we're adding that to the repertoire. I'm going to start doing
There you
that
go.
because it can't hurt.
Yeah, man.
Got you this
I'm
far.
telling you.
Eric, thank you so
Cheers.
much.
Thank you for having me.
All
Thank
right,
you,
it's
everyone.
Hootie from Sixpoint. Eric Botchley, thank you so much for joining us today. Amazing. Amazing. Well, I don't know about you people, but I've got to slow down. Whoa. All right, so it's not too often that I get to be on stage next to one of these and be told not to touch it under any circumstances. I can't tell you how tempting this is. But we actually have some professionals who are going to play for us. Would you please welcome flutist Brandon George and Bridget Kibbey for the harp. Very talented Brandon George and Bridget Kibbey. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. I want to just talk to Brandon real fast, just because he was the one among the two of you who made the right choices about like what instrument to choose as a commuter. So first of all, tell folks what it is that we heard.
You just heard the second movement of Mozart's Flute and Harp Concerto.
And so, go ahead.
With the harp solo and orchestra played by the lovely Bridget Kibbey.
Amazing, right? To play that transcription or the flute and harp concerto, that's like a Ginger Rogers move, like backwards and in heels. I got to do the piano and the harp. Brandon, do you put any stock in that? There's a couple letters kicking around where Mozart's writing home to his dad. He's like, I just don't like the flute. Anything but the flute. You ever run into that?
A lot. We hear about this a lot as flute players.
What do you think of it?
I think he fell behind on his work and he was looking for an excuse. Because when you listen to the music that he wrote for the flute, it's so beautiful. And his symphonies, piano concerti, the operas, flute concertos, flute quartets. It's like, you didn't like the flute? Oh. Yeah.
And you've been doing something really cool at the Met Museum, which recently opened up its instrument room again. Can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so starting next month, May, and in June, I'll be doing a series of concerts and talks revolving around two exhibitions that are happening, the Paris to Provence and also the Visitors to Versailles, in which I'll play on historic instruments from that time and repertoire from those periods in different galleries in the museum, and people will be able to experience what the art and also what the sounds were of that time on period instruments.
And how is playing those instruments different than what you're playing today?
The instrument that existed, that Mozart wrote for, is much more difficult than this. It didn't have any keys, really. It just had 6 holes and a little key at the bottom. So all of these gadgets that you see here makes it really easy for us. So you have to work a lot harder.
All right, so May and June?
Yeah, May 23rd and June 15th.
All right, check Brandon George out at the Met Museum, okay? And Bridget. How did you choose the harp?
I first encountered it in a very small church in Findlay, Ohio, which I'm sure you've never heard of, like the middle of cornfields. I was mesmerized by the way it looked when this woman was playing, long flowy hair, the whole image. My dad actually said, would you like to try lessons? He immediately regretted that when I fell in love with the harp and he had to buy one and schlep it for about 12 years.
It's like buying a car, right?
It's like buying a car, exactly. This is my Honda Civic. It really does a trick. Very reliable.
Can you indulge me on one thing I've always wanted to do? Can you do the nostalgia thing? I just need to hear that. So wait, let me just set it up. I remember it like it was yesterday. Oh my God. Is that like the first thing you learned? I feel like we can take this show on the road, Bridget. Was that good for you? Because it just brought me so far back. Amazing. And you also, you have, I'm sure you've learned lots of tricks. So they do say about harpists, and I want to know if this is true, that you spend half of your life playing the harp and the other half of your life tuning the harp.
Let me rephrase that to say, we have great ears because we have to tune by ear, by fourths and fifths, and there are 47 strings, so we're very busy exactly tuning every hour on the hour, like CNN. That's what we do. Yes.
Well, I think tuning an instrument like that is kind of like airplane maintenance. It's like, it takes a little longer, but it's worth it. And I think you have like a little trick that you've learned. So what is this?
Well, I really like to do this for children when I play concerts because they're worried about my shoulder. I mean, they're like, oh, you're carrying so much weight on your shoulder, but little do they know. Yeah. The harp balances its own weight, so we're not actually carrying the whole weight of the instrument on our shoulders. How do you carry it on the subway? Oh, I have a professional harp mover who will be here at 8:45 sharp, and he'll load it in the minivan and drive me home. It's a really nice perk.
Wow. So who knew that was a job? A professional harp mover. But never the subway.
Never the subway. Although there is someone that plays in Central Park every day. I admire her a lot. Yeah. How she gets it there, I don't know.
You've got some shows coming up in August.
Yes. Okay, so in August 6th and 7th, the wonderful Andrew Uzeli has a new series that he's running in a crypt in Brooklyn, and I'm putting together a show that's based on the macabre, which actually relates to this evening, so I thought I'd talk about that. We'll be playing Caplet's Conte Fantastique after the Masque of the Red Death for harp and quartet, where the harp represents the plague and death. It is incredible. It's lush. I'll be playing Toccata and Fugue in D minor. There'll be incredible collaborators, so please mark your calendars. And it's actually Debussy's centennial this month, so I'm actually heading out on the road for a month to play all of our French masterworks on the harp. Sadly, not New York, but on both coasts. So, yeah.
Okay, well, good luck. And we'll see you, it's weird, like, see you at the cemetery. Yeah. Yeah, so Greenwood, Shannon, that's in Brooklyn, right? And Leonard Bernstein is buried there, Louis Moreau Gottschalk as well. Please have another round of applause for Brandon George and Bridget Kibbey. Amazing. And the music of Mozart. I was trying to think of a Friday the 13th story about Mozart. Of course, the creepiest thing about Mozart is the story about his Requiem. Have anybody seen the movie Amadeus? Yeah, so that the story in the movie is that F. Murray Abraham, as Salieri, has Mozart write this Requiem. He's going to pass it off as his own as he poisons Mozart, and Mozart dies. Obviously, that didn't happen. But if you watch Homeland season 4, it's F. Murray Abraham as Dari Dahl, who killed Mozart in a CIA plot, and Carrie could have stopped it, and Saul knew all about it, but didn't do anything. Actually, the truth is that it was a Viennese aristocrat who commissioned the Requiem because his wife had died, and he wanted to pass off the Requiem as his own, which I think is just, how do you pull that off? It's like we were sitting Shiva, and I went over the piano, and, this thing in D minor, which is the saddest of all keys, the melody just came to me. And I definitely wrote this. I definitely wrote this Requiem for my dear Ethel. So that was the original story of how the Requiem came to be. I was wondering, have I asked you guys for money yet? You pay it already. You contributors. Okay, if you're not a member, who's a member of this radio station? Okay. That's good. That's amazing. Thank you so much. So we are a public radio station, WQXR. We do rely on listener contributions to do what we do. It's all true. And if you're not a member yet, just remember that playing the music on the air every day and doing events like this in the Greene Space is all possible because of listener contributions. So thank you. Everybody's got their beer, right? Okay. I would like to bring on to the stage the person who brewed this beer. He comes from Strong Rope Brewery, and for like the 8th time today, let me say hello, Sailor. Please welcome Jason Saylor. Cheers. What do we have here, Jason?
This is a Strong Rope IPA, 6.4%. Just a easy drinking classical IPA.
A classical IPA? I see you got here in this room. That's a loaded term.
Yeah. We were going for a somewhat old school approach to the IPA, using Nugget, hops, Chinook, and Columbus, which give a very kind of piney, resiny, somewhat citrus hop character with a nice kind of balanced malt profile to kind of hold everything together, but allow the hops to shine.
And so, Strong Rope Brewery, as I understand it, you're focused on New York State ingredients. So, can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah. We're what is considered a New York State farm brewery. The license right now dictates that you use 20% New York hops and malts. Next year it jumps to 60%, and then 2024 it uses 90%.
Wow.
Right now, we're using 100% New York hops and about 95% New York malts in all of our beers.
Oh my God! You're way ahead of the curve. It's amazing.
And this year, we actually hope to jump to 100% across the board as the maltsters are getting their roasters online and provide the specialty malts that we need to kind of make that jump.
So why this? Like, why New York State farm ingredients?
Well, I'm from Western New York, Rochester area.
All right.
Yeah.
Rochester in the house.
And yeah, and I've lived in New York for my life and traveled throughout the state. Lived in the country for a while and always loved seeing what the farmers were doing, and always was interested in kind of sustainability. And for me, for what we're doing at Strong Rope, that really kind of came about as working with local ingredients. So I go around the state, I meet with the hop farmers, I meet with the malt houses, and it allows me to kind of really get a sense of what what goes into the beer and who these people are that are making these ingredients that without them this stuff wouldn't be possible. And I thought that was very lost for a long time, so I wanted to kind of bring that back.
Amazing. And your brewery's based in Gowanus. Is that also one of the secret ingredients?
Yes.
That's a New York State
yeah.
ingredient. I don't know what it is.
It's great, yeah.
Yeah.
Provides that little just, yeah.
Do you have a tap room?
We do. We're in 574 President Street between 3rd and 4th Avenue in Gowanus. We have a full tap room, open, I think Gowanus, Rochester, everyone's here. And we're open Wednesday through Sunday right now. And come down, drink the beers. Everything's fresh. Everything's ours.
Yeah, fantastic.
So Wednesday, Thursday, 3 to 11, Friday, 3 to midnight, Saturday, noon to midnight, and Sunday, noon to 8.
I got it.
Yeah,
I got
it's
all
right
of it.
there.
Yeah. How did you come up with the name Strong Rope?
So Strong Rope is named in honor of my best friend. His name was Eric Ropeteau. After he died, it was a way for me to pay homage to him. So everything kind of goes back to our history. He was my best friend from a young age in Rochester, and so a lot of the beer names go back to our history, our hometown, him in general, or him specifically and stuff. So it was just a way for me to kind of keep him in my mind and around.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful story. And do you have a superstition?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot, but my main one is just you don't ever cheers on an empty glass.
That's true.
And I don't know what would happen, but you
Every
just
people
don't
do
it.
that? You know that? You don't do that,
Yeah.
right? You have to have a full glass, or
Yeah.
not an empty
Yeah.
glass.
Yeah. So.
Well, cheers.
Jeez, thank you.
All right, let's have a big round of applause for Jason Saylor, Strong Rope Brewery in Gowanus. Thank you so much for sharing your beer with us. All right, thank you. Okay, so our next musical offering to pair with the Strong Rope is a pair of Schumanns. We will hear a 66% Clara Schumann by volume performance that is also paired with Robert Schumann's Abendlied. Please welcome to the stage violinist Stefan Jackiw and pianist G. You guys are good. Stefan Jackiw, thank you so much for that. G, pianist. Hey, Joy, yeah, come over here to hide behind the piano. Welcome, that was great. Thank you so much. So tell us a little bit about what we heard tonight.
Well, you heard first 2 of the 3 romances for violin and piano by Clara Schumann. And we ended with a transcription of a song by Robert Schumann, her husband, called Abendlied, which means evening song. And it was transcribed for the violin by a violinist named Josef Joachim, who was part of that whole 19th century German classical music world. He was friends with Brahms, he was friends with Schumann, he's friends with Clara Schumann. He was kind of the go-to violinist of the day.
And so why did you choose these particular works together?
He's the go-to violinist
No.
today.
Oh!
Yeah, I can't top that. So
I just feel like that's going to be in all the billboards now. The go-to violinist of today, says G.
straight to my website.
And G, tell me, you have a new record out coming out, right?
Yes.
Say a little bit about what's on that album.
I just put out a record with Warner Classics, and it's the Goldberg Variations. It came out back in January, and it's a piece that I was really scared to record, but I'm very happy about it. I'm very happy that I did it, and I'm happy that I could share it with everybody.
All right, excellent.
All of 10 people.
What are we, chopped liver? All right. And Stefan, you have some concerts coming up. Can you say a little bit about what you're working on with Jeremy Denk?
Yeah, a week from Sunday, which is the 22nd, I'll be performing the complete sonatas of Charles Ives, who's the 20th century American modernist composer. I'll be working with Jeremy Denk, who is
the go-to pianist of today. Sorry.
Yes, exactly. It's
None taken.
it's a pair of go-tos, so you should definitely go to that concert. But it's in New York City at Town Hall, which is near Times Square, and we actually recorded it recently, so that album will be coming out too.
Mm-hmm. So April 22nd.
Correct.
So it's a week from this coming Sunday. Town Hall, Stefan Jackiw and Jeremy Denk doing the complete Ives sonatas. And you know that G has his Goldberg Variations. Those are by Bach, not the other Goldberg Variations that nobody plays. The Bach ones. And that's on Warner. I have to ask you guys, are you superstitious about Friday the 13th?
Not about the day particularly, but.
Do you have any musician superstitions?
Well, my mother is from Seoul, South Korea, and so I kind of influenced by that culture a bit, and I spend a lot of time in Korea for performing. And they have a superstition there that on the day of an important event that you've prepared a lot for, like an exam or let's say a concert, you should eat sticky things because it'll help all your preparation stick. And you should avoid slippery things because all your knowledge and preparation will slide right out of you. And I didn't really put much stock in this, but then before a concert I ate a lot of oysters and played terribly. So figure there might be some wisdom in that.
Amazing. Did you have any superstitions like that? Anything like that?
I'm from Korea, and I never heard that before. But
All right, well, a big round of applause for Stefan Jackiw and G. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much. And are you having a good time so far? Like, we're good. because we're about like a third of the way into the show, and by now I hope that you're starting to enjoy yourself. And I want you to come back. We're going to be doing another event on May 18th. So please mark your calendars for the next one. I'd love to see all of you here again. There will be lots of beer, lots of performers, and I'd love to have you back. It is time for another edition of Classical Beer Jam Trivia. So I need a volunteer from the audience on this side. I see. No, I can't. It's an inside job. How about you in the back? All right. No volunteers? Okay. Please. Come on up. Yes. All righty. I am surprised, people. There's like a tote bag on the line here. And no volunteers? Oh, come on. Jenny, you're here. Welcome. Tell me your name.
Jenny.
Welcome, Jenny. Where are you from?
I grew up in Florida, but I'm from Queens.
I would say like Florida to here for this tonight is very touching, but that's a commitment. All right, so are you ready to play trivia for hanging in the balance, the WQXR members tote bag and the Leonard Beer Stein? Oh yeah. And so now, are you familiar with the rules of the trivia round tonight?
You can still kind of.
You're already a winner. That's the rule. You're a winner just from getting up here. Thank you for coming. Okay, here we go. So we've talked a little bit about bad luck and omens and superstitions, but now we're going to talk about lucky charms of great composers. So we'll start you off with this one. The composer Jacques Offenbach is best known for operas like Faust and Tales of Hoffmann and the Can-Can from Orpheus in the Underworld that he wrote for a ShopRite ad campaign in the 1980s. For good luck, what did Jacques Offenbach keep stored in his piano bench? Was it A, a mechanical love doll named Olympia? B, a lock of hair from his idol, Richard Wagner? C, a croupier's rake? Or D, a ticket stub from her first Dead show at the Fillmore?
B?
No, he did not keep a lock of hair from his idol, Richard Wagner. He actually did not like Richard Wagner, and the feeling was mutual. He kept a baton carved from a croupier's rake. He had had a very, very lucky night in Baden-Baden, and he was just rolling sevens all night long, and he just brought home the bacon and the croupier's rake with it. So you're 0 for 1.
Come on, Jenny. I know.
All right, Jenny. Stay with me, Jenny from Florida. All right. Norwegian composer and president of the Oslo Mark Twain Lookalike Society, Edvard Grieg, used to get nervous before his performances. What did he rub for good luck? Was it A, a mechanical love doll named Olympia? A lock of hair from his idol, Richard Wagner? A ceramic frog? Or D, a rabbit's foot?
Frog.
Correct. He had a ceramic frog that he would carry around in his pocket, and he would rub it for good luck every time he went on stage. All right, you're 1 for 1. Well done. Thank you, audience, for helping. Okay, here we go. We just heard some music by Clara and Robert Schumann. Pianist, composer, and music critic Robert Schumann was a firm believer in omens and signs. When he was writing his first symphony, the Spring Symphony, what object did he rely on for inspiration? Was it A, a mechanical love doll named Olympia? B, a pen he found at Beethoven's grave? C, a lucky pebble he found along the Rhine? Or D, a hip flask filled with Red Bull and Jack? Jenny, you have a microphone?
The pen?
It is the pen. Correct, Jenny, nicely played. So the story goes that Schumann went to visit the graves of Schubert and Beethoven, and he found a metal pen there because obviously that was the pen that Schubert left when he visited Beethoven's grave. And that's what Schumann believed. He believed he had found a pen that Schubert had left when making the same call to the cemetery, and he used that pen to write his first symphony. So you are 2 for 1. and you are a winner of Classical Beer Jam Trivia. Thank you, Jenny from Florida. Thank you so much. Let's have a big round of applause. Okay. We have handed out the chocolate, and I think everybody's got a very matching dark beer. So will you please, oh my gosh, look at the ABV on this thing. I think we need to know there's a doctor in the house. Will you please welcome the maker of this beer, Rich Castagna of Bridge and Tunnel Brewery. Give it up. My God.
Sorry, man.
Rich, thank you.
Brought a short pour, 12%.
Thank you so, my goodness gracious. Rich, so I guess my first question is, are you trying to kill me?
That's why I brought a short pour.
So tell us about the Ghost of Diogenes, an imperial stout.
Okay, it's a
Imperial pale ale, I'm sorry.
it's a imperial stout. It's a 12% ABV. It's about 40 IBUs of bitterness. It took us about a year to get it where we wanted it. It's actually two of the same beers blended and aged for about 9 months, and then finally kegged. And we just wanted to go big, you know.
Wow. So
Yeah.
two different beers.
Well, the same beer, because we wanted a big enough batch that initially we wanted to bottle it, but then just too many other things got in the way. We were making cider last fall, and it just didn't happen. But we wanted a big enough batch that we could also bottle it, and now it's in kegs. You know.
Amazing. So tell us about the name, the Ghost of Diogenes Imperial Stout.
Okay, ready for this?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So, well, when we were going back when I was building out the brewery, every task that I could get my hands on without jeopardizing anybody's licenses, like the plumber or the guy that helped me install the boiler, they passed it on to me. So I was my own general contractor, which meant that I could hire my own labor, which was me, and not pay that person. So in that equation, I had to jackhammer 70 feet of concrete out like a trench for basically for a trench drain in the back.
It's gotta be good for the back.
Right. Well, actually, it was like carpal tunnel. It was like, yeah, it was, especially with like an electric jackhammer. It wasn't really. Anyway, 18 inches of concrete, finally hit dirt, and I was like calling it quits. And the boiler guy said, no, you have to go down another 3 inches at least. But at least he was like, at least you're at dirt. So I started skimming the dirt, and as I'm skimming the dirt, I'm finding stuff. I'm finding, like, first it was oyster shells, then it was bottle tops, then I found a beer mug that was split right in half, like the bottom of the beer mug. I found a cobalt blue bottle that was actually a precursor to Alka-Seltzer. It was a bromo seltzer bottle, and they're actually like collector's items.
Wow.
So I found all this stuff, and then more. At one point, it's funny, my kids in their school, like they're in this charter school in Long Island City, and they all like study the same thing. The whole school studies the same thing at the same time, so they were studying artifacts. So I was bringing stuff home to them, and they were freaking out, you know, and they were like, Dad, what else do you think is under there? And I was like, well, if you come, you never know, maybe you'll find a skull or something. And they just kind of didn't really know if I was messing with them or not. Sure enough, they came down, they found a bone. I was like, you see? It's
so
in there.
I think it's like a long way of saying there's human remains in this beer.
I could show you. I have the bone.
What?
You want to see?
All right, it's Friday the 13th. I think it's about time that we have like a human bone on
prepared.
stage.
I come prepared.
That's not.
All right, so anyway, Diogenes is a pre-prohibition brewery that existed on the land that I'm brewing on. Old photos of the brewery. In fact, that's the photo right there. If you see on the screen, and if you see, there's the proper building on the brewery proper is on the corner. In the middle of the block is the building that I'm in, and the building itself actually had a barrel making facility as well as a beer hall. So we speculate that maybe it was a dirt floor at the time, and I like to think maybe it was where they were making barrels, you know. And you figure a bunch of people, you know, constructing barrels, lunchtime comes around, they're eating oysters, because that's what workers
Slippery,
did
though.
back then.
Never on show day.
Right, right.
Yeah.
They're possibly consuming beer on the job, right? Right? And this. Well, I'm getting to it. Here's, you know, you got to pour your beer in a beer mug. So here's the 2 pieces of beer mug that fuse together. Boss comes in, kills the guys that are drinking on the job, and there's the bone. Somebody's not feeling well after seeing whatever he saw, bust out the Bromo seltzer bottle, and everything gets pounded into the dirt afterwards. So that's where we're at.
Wow. I feel like a night that started with puppetry is going to end with somebody's femur. Yeah.
That's how we roll, man, in Ridgewood.
So you're in Ridgewood now. So when we first met Rich, he came down here. He was still doing a nano brewery out of Maspeth, Queens, but now you got a bigger spot.
Right. It was started in a 150 square foot, 1-car garage, literally in my backyard, little self-built rig, and then I thought, wow, it's so romantic to have a tap room and all that, so we built another space. Not very romantic, but we made it, and now it's a 2,300 square foot space. Half of it is a tap room. The other half divided by chain link fence. Got to keep it New York, you know. Chain link fence. It has signs on it. Don't feed the alligators. And it's another self-built system, roughly 6 times the scale.
Amazing, amazing. Well, congratulations.
Ridgewood. We're off the Halsey stop of the L line. Yeah.
All right. So in Ridgewood, Queens, Bridge and Tunnel Brewery, Rich Castagna. You don't know what you're going to find there, and I really mean that. You don't know what you're going to find at Bridge and Tunnel.
Right on. All right.
Hey, cheers,
Cheers,
Rich.
man.
Thank you so much.
All
Wow. So in classical music, we talk a little bit about the 3 Bs. Everybody hear that? It's like this thing, a way of remembering. I think it's Bach, Beethoven, and Beyonce. So I thought that it would be perfect to match our Imperial Stout with Queen Bee. So please welcome Boy Meets Girl. Thank you. Thank you for the first performance of Beyonce at a WQXR event. Hopefully not the last. So just for those of us who have not memorized Lemonade, can you say a little bit about this song?
Sure, well, it's actually the opening track of Lemonade. And Laura and our name is Boyd Meets Girl, and as that implies, we are actually married. But this, this opening song is all about infidelity. And so I just wanted, if my mum is watching, wanted her to know that everything is fine between Laura and myself.
I have a feeling, though, if you end up on David Letterman, the story might change.
Exactly.
So you are known as Boyd Meets Girl together. How did you? I mean, it's a cute name. I was going to go with Metcalf Meets Man, but tell me a little bit about how Rupert Boyd, actually met Laura Metcalf.
It was actually here in New York City. As you can tell, I'm not from here. I'm from Australia.
I wouldn't know.
Oh, really? Excellent. I'm passing flawlessly with my accent. But we actually met almost 10 years ago backstage at a concert. Similar to the situation tonight, we're in the same dressing room together, but at that time we're playing on different pieces. I remember meeting this very attractive blonde cellist and saying hello to her, and she wouldn't speak to me at all.
And so then when did you meet Laura?
That was actually the next week. Exactly the same thing happened. No, that was Laura. But then we met again over the years at sort of parties, and until eventually in 2012 we started dating.
So does any of this story sound familiar to you, Laura?
I don't remember not talking to him at all. I think I was focused on my performance, and I was about to go on stage. I was trying to get in the moment, you know. But yeah, I think that's kind of basically how it happened.
So the name of the group is Boyd Meets Girl, and you're doing something really interesting that you put together at Subculture nearby.
Yeah, we just launched a concert series called Gather NYC, and it takes place every Sunday morning at 10:30 in the morning. It's at Subculture downtown, and the idea is sort of religious experience, but there's no religion, only music. And the concerts are an hour long. We have some incredible artists that are coming to play. We serve free coffee and pastries before the concert so that you're awake for the concert. We also have storytellers that come in from the winners of the Moth Story Slam. I don't know if you guys know the Moth. So we have Moth storytelling winners tell short stories. We have a 2-minute celebration of silence. Whole thing is done by 11:30, and you can go to brunch or spin or whatever it is that you do on Sundays. And we are actually playing one of the concerts as Boyd Meets Girl in 2 weeks on April 29th.
What's the series called?
Gather NYC.
You're taking all my best lines. What's the series called again?
GatherNYC.org.
GatherNYC.org. It's happening at Subculture every Sunday. It sounds, I mean, just as observation, it sounds a lot like this. Yeah, yeah, very. Well, this hair of the dog. And after Rich's Imperial Stout, the Ghost of Diogenes, I'm going to need it. Do you think? Do we have? You guys are up for one more? All right. Can I trouble you for one more? All right. So please give it up again for Boyd Meets Girl. Boy Meets Girl. Stay with us for a second. Boy Meets Girl. And I can't help but notice, are you expecting a Boyd or a girl?
A baby boy, Boyd.
Well, as Beethoven often said, Mazel Tov. Amazing. Go see them at gathernyc.com, at subculture.org, at Subculture, an amazing event on Sunday mornings. And please welcome back to the stage for one last round of applause all the folks who can be still with us tonight. Boyd Meets Girl, Bridget Kibbey, Brandon George, G, Merlin Ward, Eric Bockley of Sixpoint, Jason Saylor of Strong Rope, and Rich Castagna of Bridge and Tunnel. Thank you all for coming out, and we hope to see you again on May 18th, back for more beer and fun. Thank you so much.